Good afternoon. My name is John Sweeney, and I'm the Director of Stewardship Development at Vestavia Hills United Methodist Church. And I've been invited to partake in this sharing of the book of Acts. And so after Sherry's wonderful Acts 17, I delve into Acts 18, where we pick up Paul's journey. And he leaves Athens, and he heads to Corinth at the beginning of 18. And this wonderful story happens starting in chapter 18, verse 5. And so Silas and Timothy arrived from Macedonia, and Paul was, and again, this is quoting, Paul was occupied with proclaiming the word, testifying to Jews that the Messiah was Jesus. I love that he was occupied with proclaiming the word. You know, Paul, when after that conversion experience that Sherry referred to, I tell you, Paul doesn't stray much from his occupation. He knows what his occupation is, and that is to proclaim the word. And he says here in verse 6, when they opposed and reviled him, again, this is Silas and Timothy. When they opposed, in protest, he shook the dust from his clothes and said to them, "Your blood be on your own heads. I am innocent. From now on, I will go to the Gentiles." A couple of things that I love about that passage. First of all is that image of shaking the dust. You know, so oftentimes we stick around and choose to argue the point more than we should. I know I'm guilty of that often. That we feel like we're right, and by gosh, I'm going to get the last word in. And Paul sets an example there. And that term, shake the dust, I've tried to use that in my own brain as much as I can throughout the years. Just shake the dust. Be done with them. Walk away. Just kind of literally just shake it off. And it's refreshing to be able to say that. Just shake the dust, walk away. But then he also says, Paul says, from now on, I will go to the Gentiles. And, you know, for the majority of us who find ourselves in modern Christianity, we're the Gentiles. You know, Paul decides that he is going to begin ministering and proclaiming the word to the Gentile population as opposed to the Jewish population. And that's when we become involved in this story. And that, for us, is the beginning. You know, this whole book of Acts is talking about the beginning of our church history. And for us, the Gentiles, Paul is realizing that there is fertile ground amongst us. And he says, fine, you know what, Jews? If you're not going to listen to what I'm saying, if you're not going to hear that the Messiah is Jesus Christ, I'm going to go tell the Gentiles. I'm going to see what they have to say about it. And God rewards Paul in that. He's the Lord, again, I'm in verse 9. One night the Lord said to Paul in a vision, "Do not be afraid, but speak, and do not be silent, for I am with you. And no one will lay a hand on you or harm you, for there are many in this city who are my people." It then says, he stayed there 1 year and 6 months, teaching the word of God among them. So Paul found comfort there in Corinth. But the chapter goes on, and he returns to Antioch, and he's picked up to a couple, Priscilla and Aquila, among his journeys. And there's this wonderful moment in the last part of chapter 18. It kind of starts with verse 24, and there's a man a Jew who comes to Ephesus, named Apollos, and it says here in verse 24, he was an eloquent man, well versed in scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with burning enthusiasm and taught accurately the things concerning Jesus. Though he knew only the baptism of John, he began to speak boldly in the synagogue. But when Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they took him aside and explained the way of God to him more accurately. That reminded me of times when I was young in my faith and young in my in ministry, and I would have those people in my life that would pull me aside and share with me their thoughts on a sermon that I had preached or a Bible study I had given or led. And gosh, it was invaluable, and it was wisdom. And I can hear Priscilla and Aquila teaching Apollos about grace, that he was very confident in the scriptures and very bold and enthusiastic, but maybe there was something missing in his ministry, that element of grace or really empathizing in who the people were that he was preaching to. And this wonderful couple pulls him aside, and it says it shows him the way of God. And it made me think about those special people in my life. And I challenge you now to think about those people in your life who either literally or metaphorically kind of pull you aside and share with you their wisdom and their thoughts and their honesty about who we are, almost an accountability partner. My thought and challenge for you is, if you don't have those people in your life, that you seek them out. But I tell you, the truest come when a friend, a colleague can pull you aside, kind of wrap their arm around you and say, I want to share this with you out of love. And that's a true moment when you can share in those experiences with others. And so my blessing upon you today as we continue through the book of Acts, and finding those opportunities to share with one another who we are in the way of God.